Well, it is a beautiful morning to be kicking off baseball in Kansas City in the 2025 season. I'm Pete Mundo. We are KCMO Talk Radio. It is great to be back. Thank you to Jonathan Weir and Paul Gallant for filling in over the last few days. It's good to be back after traveling out of the country for my brother-in-law's wedding. So congratulations to him, but I'll tell you right now, you take three little kids more or less out of the country, technically to Puerto Rico. She is Puerto Rican, which is basically out of the country. If I can't read the street signs, I'm out of the country as far as I'm concerned, and that's the case. So when you were three little kids, that's a haul, but we made it back. And now we are live from Kauffman Stadium this morning, where the Royals look to build on an incredible 2024 season and now are one of the favorites to get to the World Series in the American League in 2025. But, of course, the backdrop here, as far as we're concerned on KCMO, is not about the X's and the O's of baseball. It's about the news, the politics of what is happening with this ball team and the stadium. Now, owner John Sherman will be on the show at 9:05 this morning. So this will be our first conversation with the majority owner of the Kansas City Royals since 1 year ago today, when, of course, we were all building up to the big vote in April that went down in flames. The hype was around the crossroads and the Royals revamping Arrowhead Stadium and what this was going to look like in a new era in Kansas City for athletics. And then it came to a crashing halt because the voters said, no, we're good. We're going to pass. We have nothing about this plan that we like, and there's too much that we don't know. So this was one of those plans that was not driven by KC tenants. It was not driven by more conservative folks in Kansas City. Everybody had a reason to hate those stadium plans from last year. The left, the right, the apolitical, the hyper-political. Everybody had something they did not like about the plan. And it went down in flames, basically 1 year ago next week. So we were sitting here on opening day, and we were talking to all these folks, and they were all excited, and, hey, this is our plan, vote for this. We're jazzed up, we're juiced. And the voters said, well, we're not. 1 year later, we still sit here in flux. Nobody really has any answers. Now, I know one of my competitors, a sports talk show host, blew himself up this week, and it's tough. You take a couple of days off, and your hope is that the competition does not run circles around you. I kind of had the best of both worlds. I took some time off, and my competition made a total fool of himself. So it's great when it goes down like that. You feel bad for people, but it did work out in our favor. One of our competitors decided that he was going to go on the radio and say 119th and null for the Royals is basically a done deal. It's a dumb deal, too, if it were to happen, but it was basically a done deal, in his words. And the Royals come out and say no. Business owners, property owners come out and say no. And then it's like, oop, guess we got to walk that one back. So yesterday, John Sherman comes out and he does a press conference, of course, majority owner of the Royals on the eve of opening day. And he talked about that specific report that somehow 119th and null was basically a done deal. And here's what John Sherman had to say.
I would say that the speculation has been seems to have been heightened in the last few days. I would tell you a couple things about that. Whatever the source of that speculation, it didn't come from us, and when we have something to talk about, we're going to be ready to talk about that.
Okay, now I'm not going to speculate on who the source was on that. I don't want to go down that road, but I will say there are certain people who have advocated and lobbied for certain parts of town, and I don't know if that's based on relationships. I don't know if that's based on business deals. I don't know what it's based on. But I've just sat here from our role at KCMO Talk Radio and simply followed the story and brought you the information that I knew as the story was unfolding from the people involved. That's what we've done, and that's why from day one on the stadium deal, what I've said is that this is not a sports story, and we will run laps around the sports guys on this story. We will do it because the movers and the shakers are politicians, are business individuals. They're not sports people. The sports are the backdrop for what is really a politics, business, tax climate story. Who can get the best incentives? Who can offer the best incentives? Who's writing the bills that create the incentives? The politicians are, the people that we talk about and deal with and rip on and make fun of every single day. They're the ones who are at the center of this. The sports folks are so far out of their league, and the worst part for them is they don't even realize it. They think that their, one friend in Kansas City area politics who has a narrative to pursue is somehow going to give them all the information and all the answers, and they're going to run with it on the air. And that's not how it works. And now they've made a, horse's rear end out of themselves in the last few days. And I don't see him anywhere. No, I don't. We may be the only live radio show out here at the K on opening day. I just got a thumbs up from engineer extraordinaire Chris Castro, who's joining me here today. Keatsman will be here at 10 o'clock, but we're the only ones, as far as I can tell, when it comes to live radio. So, and when we're doing that, because, of course, it gets us owner John Sherman, it gets us other people involved in the show. J.J. Piccolo, the general manager, will be here as well. So it gets us all these different individuals. It gets us access, and we'll be the only radio show in Kansas City who will get that access this morning. And because of the backdrop with the stadium and the politics involved, that's why this show is so incredibly important today. It's not, yes, we'll talk about baseball with the baseball folks, but there's a lot of other things happening behind the scenes that we want to make sure we bring you today here on KCMO Talk Radio. Now, John Sherman did also bring up yesterday during his press conference a timeline on stadium plans from his perspective, and here's what he said.
Well, I think we have a stated objective of being able to talk about a specific location. I'm calling it, the middle of the calendar year in that June-July period.
Okay. And that's what he said last week on a spring training broadcast from Arizona. Middle of the year, June, July. That's his timeline. So that tells me that we've got some moving parts here where you've got, probably 2, maybe 3 months to figure out, are we going downtown or are we going to go to Kansas? I've always said that downtown makes the most sense. We know they're not staying at the K. I know people are like, save the K, save the... It's not happening. It's not. I don't like it necessarily, and I don't mind saying that here from their stadium. I don't like that they don't like it here, but I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that anything else is possible right now. They will not stay here. The Royals will not continue here beyond whatever it is, 2030, I guess it is, when the lease officially ends at the Truman Sports Complex. So the question becomes where? If you think 119th and Knoll is a great place for baseball, then you cannot be trusted to do just about anything. That's the simplest way to put it. I could not think of a worse place for a baseball stadium if I tried. And if you lived there, if you shopped there, if you did anything in that area, and I don't, but yeah, I'm sure the individual at 116th and Knoll who just bought himself or herself $1 million home is going to love hearing horns honking after a baseball game 81 nights a year, getting back to 435. That'll be great for Overland Park and the community at large there. That's exactly what folks are looking for. You've got to be kidding me. So just understand that some of these ideas that are getting floated out there are poorly sourced and, frankly, are just bad information from people who are not in the know on what's actually happening here. So that sets up the stage for what is going to be a really good day and an exciting day. And, of course, the baseball backdrop, there's nothing quite like it. You sit here broadcasting from the Diamond Club at the K, and opening day is one of those days that does bring back that childhood fandom in a way that no other sport does. NFL opening night or NFL opening Sunday is fun. It's exciting. You're like, gosh, this is great. Football's back. It's America's sport right now. Baseball isn't. Baseball has had some problems, which is the other reason that they've got this new business model for these teams. They've got to make money in restaurants and hotels and business properties and things of that nature that allows them the opportunity to go out there and fund the team in a sport that has no salary cap. Right? That's the name of the game. They've got their struggles. They've got their issues. That being said, you get that childhood-like feel on opening day. at a Major League Baseball stadium. I mean, you get that smell, you get that feel in the air. When you have a beautiful spring morning like this, it's obviously even better. We've been out here when it's 35 degrees in the morning. That's not the case right now. So that is part of the equation, it's part of the factor. And even if you're just a casual sports fan, you know that feeling. And that's the feeling we've got in this town, especially after that run to the postseason last year for the first time in nearly a decade. 913-408-7957 is how you join us this morning on KCMO. Mayor Lucas will be here at 7:30 for his usual Thursday slot. That'll be a very important conversation with some of the news around the ballpark. And, yes, Royals owner John Sherman at 9:05 here on KCMO. Well, it's great to be back on 95.7 FM, and it's even better to be at Kauffman Stadium, where the Royals, of course, are getting set for opening day later this afternoon. And we are thrilled to be here and be a part of it as they'll be taking on the Cleveland. Say it with me there, Engineer Castro. Who is playing in Cleveland these days? Who is it? It's the Guardians, not the Indians. Don't call them the Indians. Don't do it, okay? They're the Guardians now. I see you're a big baseball fan, Chris. I'm glad you're out here with me. It's good to have you here, buddy. Oh, my goodness gracious. Now, one thing, I was off for the last few days, and I wanted to see as the terrorism against Tesla owners continued to pick up, I wanted to see what was going on here locally on that front. We know that last week, of course, we had protests. I know that those protests have continued in recent days outside of that Tesla dealership on State Line Road. I thought to myself, gosh, wouldn't it be good if, the man who is the congressperson for this part of town would denounce this kind of violence? But I went through Emmanuel Cleaver's social media feed last night as I was waiting for my baggage at KCI, and there was nothing there. I mean, he was very active. I saw he was down there doing another rally in Washington, D.C. this time regarding. Thank you very much. Yes. I'm still a musty moo-moo, I guess, according to Cleaver. But I went through his social media feed, and I found nothing regarding him denouncing violence, against Tesla owners and Tesla dealers and the protests and the things of that nature. And I'm thinking to myself, here's a guy and here's a party that has spent 4 years hyper-focusing on one day, and that is, of course, January 6th, 2021, and what happened at the Capitol that day. And regardless of your political affiliation, anybody could look at that day and those who broke the law and said, you know what, that was some criminal stuff that was going on, and if you were committing criminal acts, I have been supportive, and I think most people have been supportive of you facing the fullest extent of the law. Now, of course, there are many people who spent more time and had more issues, and we talked to some of them here on the show from the Kansas City area, who would have maybe been hit with a misdemeanor, if not let off the hook, had they been on the right side of the political aisle. But because they were involved in that event in particular and the hyper-politicization of it, I mean, you had people spending months and months and months behind bars, where if this had happened in any other setting, well, they would have been let right off the hook. They would have dealt with absolutely nothing. But the Emmanuel Cleavers of the world have spent 4 years talking about January 6th as the single day of, political violence in this country, and there's no doubt it was an absolute embarrassment of a day. But this is where their consistency, or lack thereof, ends. You've got people literally targeting Tesla dealerships and Tesla owners because of what the company's owner, Elon Musk, has decided to do with the federal government and how he has, of course, led this DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, to try to find waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government. And you can sit there and say to yourself, well, Elon's out of line. I disagree with what he's doing. Then fine. Don't buy a Tesla. Buy his competitor. That's what we did with Bud Light. I mean, I already had the Bud Light boycott going long before it was popular. But for those of you that didn't, you were like, you know what? I'm done with this brand. I'm not buying it anymore because I don't agree with how they approach this issue with this influencer from a political perspective. That's your prerogative. But it's not enough for some of these people to say, I'm just not going to buy a Tesla. Instead, it's, no, we have to now protest outside of Tesla dealerships. We have to key Tesla cars, And God forbid we have to harass people who are going to get maintenance on their Tesla on State Line Road. And Cleaver doesn't have a single post on his social media account denouncing any of that. Spare me the holier-than-thou nonsense about how you denounce violence and, oh my gosh, violence, political violence is awful, when you will not say a peep about what is happening in your own congressional district, where a business owner and employees at these dealerships have to deal with these loser protesters who have nothing better to do with themselves or their time than go harass innocent Kansas Cityans who are just going to buy a vehicle, who are just going to get their car tuned up, who are going for a maintenance, whatever it might be. Could you imagine if conservatives had stood outside of beer stores in this town harassing people who were walking out with 30 racks of Bud Light? Could you, think about how bizarre that would look and that would sound. If a group of us, all right, today we're going over to 103rd and State Line. John, Mark, and I will be there with our signs, and we'll be, screaming at people buying Bud Light. You'd say that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Grow up. That's sophomoric. But, of course, when you do it on the other side, it's some type of, standing up to the man. We're not going to take it anymore. No, you're harassing innocent people. And same thing for Sharice Davids. I looked up her social media feed since I took some time off from social media over the last few days since I was out of town at my brother-in-law's wedding. And I was like, let me see if Congresswoman Davids has anything up on this front. No, nothing either. She is talking about lowering egg prices, though, because, yes, if I'm thinking about who is going to be the person who definitely has the answer to lower egg prices, it's Sharice Davids, who on a good day puts together 3 sentences that make sense. Even Kamala's like, come on, girl, come on. What are we doing here? 913-4087-957. We are live out at the K on KCMO Talk Radio. I'm Pete Mundo. Let's go to you. Say hi to Mike. He is on KCMO right here in Kansas City. Mike, good morning. What's happening?
Yeah, Cleaver, Davis, they're tacitly approving this. Waste, fraud, and abuse are planks of the Democrat Party, as we've seen, with Stacey Abrams and Hillary Clinton, all these people getting the money. 100 years ago, Democrats were burning crosses on people they didn't like. Now they're burning Teslas. I think it's just part of the genetics of the Democrat Party, their DNA, that they got to burn stuff of people they don't like.
Well, I'll say this much. I don't know why we are in a world right now where Teslas are lighting up and people are just like, not much to see here. I mean, I even scrolled through the local media, and there's plenty of them that I'm sitting with right here in this room in the Diamond Club on the TV side. No one else is here on the radio side, as far as I can tell. My competitors who are, breaking fake news about the Royals going to 119th and all are MIA. They're nowhere to be found. But I'm sitting here, with a bunch of folks on the TV side and wondering where the heck everybody is on this issue in particular. It's like they've conveniently forgotten about it. And it's like, no. That is not going to fly. We are not going to have fellow Kansas Cityans. And let's be honest, many of them do not view the world the way that you and I view them. Many of them did not vote for the person that you and I probably voted for. And that's okay. But they shouldn't be harassed either, because nobody should be harassed based on the vehicle that they choose to drive for doing nothing than owning a vehicle that some people do not like because they don't approve of the ownership of that vehicle. Live from Kauffman Stadium, it is great to be here on opening day. The sun has risen over right center field right now, and it is going to be a beautiful day for baseball. Should be 75 degrees for first pitch. There is about a 20% chance of a storm or shower blowing through at some point, either during the tailgate or during the game, which gets underway at 3:10 this afternoon. But absolutely outstanding day. You could not have a better start to the season, and we are proudly the only ones in radio world here. Myself and Chris Castro, our engineer extraordinaire, keep looking for somebody on the radio side. I don't know what the deal is here, man. He's shrugging his shoulders. He doesn't know what's going on. It's like this is what's happening in this town today. And we're not here to do a sports show. I haven't broken down the lineup. I'm not going to do that. It's not what we do. But I'll tell you right now, there is so much to the backdrop of what's happening here on opening day with the stadium news. Mayor Lucas saying last hour they've got $1 billion in incentives they can put together, similar to a star bond to keep the Royals in Kansas City, Missouri. So the owner, John Sherman, is going to be here at 9:05 this morning. That is 1 hour from now. We'll have on John Sherman for what will be the first conversation we've had with him since last year on opening day, and a very different sentiment than 1 year ago, because 1 year ago we were days before the big vote in Jackson County. There was still enthusiasm. There was excitement, at least from the team's perspective, on what a sales tax renewal would mean for the future of this team and this community. And since then, obviously, it's been, in large part, nothing but speculation and a lot of bad news since that vote went down in flames. So we'll get the pulse on John Sherman, and I know he held a press conference yesterday. He did share some commentary on the 119th and null rumors, which got shot down immediately, and he put that to rest. He talked about how his plan, his timeline, is coming up in the middle of the year, so he's talking June or July for when he thinks a deal will ultimately get done. And that would tell me as well, if there's something to read into that, what you would read into that as is there's probably a pretty good chance that they may not need the voter for anything. If you talk about a city incentive package of over $1 billion, and Mayor Lucas talked about it last hour, they do not need to go to a vote of the people for that. Whether it's a star bond, whether it's TIFs, whatever you want to call it, that does not require a vote because there's not an additional sales tax that's being tacked on. It's saying the revenues that come in over this current threshold, the sales tax revenues on top of the current threshold, will go back to pay off the debt. The question is, and this has always been the question for the Kansas side of the state line, how do you draw the district? What does the map of the district look like? Right? If you were to put the ballpark out at the Legends, what part of the Legends are you going to include? To say, well, if I include this part of the Legends as getting additive sales tax revenues because the Royals are playing 81 nights a year, then we'll use that money from that location, that restaurant, that bar, that fill in the blank. We'll use that additive sales tax revenue to pay off the debt. That's always been the sketchy part. How do you draw the district? Who actually is benefiting from having a baseball stadium in fill in the blank location 81 nights a year? That's where it does get kind of hairy. And no one really knows what this district looked like. Heck, no one knows where this team is going to play. I asked the mayor where downtown, and he threw out some options, but he said, listen, a large part of that is going to be up to the team as well. But he lobbied for a couple of places. Washington Square Park, obviously, is getting a lot of attention just next to Union Station. So there's a lot of question marks around this. But the vibe is very, very different today from 1 year ago on that front. And we'll get more on the feel from John Sherman coming up 1 hour from now. Now, in the meantime, I did allude to something last hour with the mayor that I haven't yet talked about this morning, and it's an email that I didn't see this get a lot of local media attention. Now, I admit I was out of town the last couple of days, and I tried to disconnect as much as I possibly can. But I did not see a lot of media coverage of an email that I know other people in Kansas City media got their hands on, including myself. And it's an email from October 31st of 2020 that was sent from Councilwoman Melissa Robinson, who was on the show last week, admitting to the mayor of Kansas City that she was upset with the hiring of Brian Platt, the now suspended city manager, because he's a white guy. In this email, the councilwoman openly states her opposition to his hiring is because he was not a black woman. Here's the email that was sent from Councilwoman Robinson to Mayor Quentin Lucas, and I have the email right in front of me from October of 2020. Part of the email reads as follows here. The councilwoman writes to the mayor of Kansas City, what happened to your commitment to seeing a black female city manager? That was a public commitment. There was no reflection of that commitment. Going from that statement to choosing a white male is unconscionable. That is in an email. I have the email. I'm looking at it right now on my phone. Now, last week we had on Councilwoman Robinson, and I asked her about race being a factor, whether it should be a factor. She insisted no. Her emails from 2020, and the fact that you would put this in an email, it's just, even if you feel that way, listen, this is inherently racist. If you are picking somebody for a job and saying someone who is this skin color and this gender should not get this job because of their skin color and their gender, that is inherently racist. Racism does not just cut one way. There are racists of all colors. There are racists of all backgrounds. That's a fact. And to look at this email and call it anything other than that, could you imagine the outcry if the shoe was on the other foot? If somebody in Kansas City politics wrote an email, was dumb enough to write an email saying, wait, you mean we didn't hire a white male? We hired a black woman, an Asian woman, or, fill in the blank, Hispanic woman? That person would be the lead story on every nightly newscast in this town for days on end. There would be protests outside of their offices, probably outside of their homes. But instead, because this cuts a certain way, it's like, nothing to see here. There might be a report on it that I may have missed over the last couple of days. Like I said, I was out of town. But this is not the outrageous reaction you would have. And frankly, this should be an outrageous reaction no matter what the sex is or the gender is of the individuals involved. If you have one of the most influential people in this town saying that they're disappointed by a hire based on someone's gender and sex, it's inexcusable. It is the definition of sexism and racism. And that's what we have here right now in this community. Today in Kansas City. And you tell me who else is focused on this today? Who else is talking about this today? Who else has this? And I know other people in Kansas City media have the same email I do. And ask yourself what they're doing with it. And if the answer is not much, ask yourself why. This is not about picking sides. This is about right versus wrong. This is about, do you want your leadership held accountable when they outwardly support racist hiring practices? 2020 was a very dumb year, but it made dumb people, sadly, even dumber with some of this stuff. And that's what you've got going on right now. It is inexcusable from one of the most influential and powerful people in Kansas City. And I've had the councilwoman on my show. We've had pleasant conversations on my show. I always appreciate her coming on the show. I would welcome her back on the show. But you cannot have somebody lobbying and advocating for things like this in Kansas City and not be willing, if you're an honest media broker and an honest media outlet, and I know there's not many left, but if you are one, this has got to be a top story. Will it turn into that? That remains to be seen. 913-4087-957 is, of course, how you join us on KCMO. That's our studio line and our text line here. We will have the owner of the Royals, John Sherman, coming up at 9:05 this morning. And we'll keep it going here. Well, we got some breaking news out here at the K. It is good to be here, as always, on KCMO. Royals owner John Sherman is going to be joining me just after 9 o'clock. And, yes, of course, a lot of excitement for the upcoming season. But what our conversation, as you can imagine, will be focused on is the future of where this team is going to be playing baseball. So that's coming up at 9:05. And then J.J. Piccolo, the general manager, is 1 hour away at 9:35 on KCMO Talk Radio. Now, in the meantime, we do have some breaking news from the national news level. And this is the top leader of the violent migrant gang MS-13 has been nabbed by law enforcement in Virginia. Authorities making the arrest just south of Washington, D.C. The FBI announcing this news here this morning. We've obviously had such a busy morning, we have not had a chance to get to it. But Attorney General Pam Bondi talking about this in the last few minutes, and here is what she had to say.
First reaction is all of our law enforcement officers are safe. That was the number one thing. They're safe. They executed a clean, safe operation, and the bad guys in custody. And thanks to the FBI, we got one of the worst of MS-13 off the streets this morning.
We were able to be out here in force to show the American people, to be here in person, that this means a lot to her and the mission. Safety is our primary concern of these communities, and we effectuated that today.
All right, that was Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, and FBI Director Kash Patel as well in that clip just a moment ago. So this is, as Pam Bondi just described, the worst of the worst. There's nothing controversial about it. There is nothing political about it. I know there has been a mindset, a theme among some that Donald Trump's immigration policies have been unpopular. That is simply not true. You look at poll after poll after poll, and actually his policies on immigration have been arguably, based on just polling across the board, his most popular policies through his first couple of months in office. More so, the tariffs get mixed reviews. DOJ gets, some mixed reviews, but still, generally speaking, above water in many cases. But how he is handling deportations, arresting criminals who are in this country illegally, is overwhelmingly popular. So this should be, from a national news cycle perspective, one of the top stories, if not the top story today. I mean, this is promises made, promises kept, right? Why these individuals were not sought after, were not gone after, were not investigated and arrested with this level of intensity by the prior administration is something I will never understand. But the party has gone so far to the left on the issue of immigration in particular that you don't recognize it from Barack Obama in 2008. You can't. And we played the audio before of Obama back in 2008, Hillary Clinton back in 2008, saying we're deporting people who are in this country as illegals, and especially those who are committing crimes. Now the party can't say that. I mean, Emanuel Cleaver and Sharice Davids can't say that. Sharice Davids here on the Kansas side, who insists she's as bipartisan as she could possibly be. I mean, that's kind of her mantra. That's obviously a talking point that she has leaned into heavily. I have not seen, and I keep up on her social media, I have not seen her advocate for this immigration policy at any point in the last 60 days. If you have, please DM it to me at Pete Mundo. I would love to see it. And I would be happy in this case to be proven wrong. But I have not seen it. And that's the biggest policy where you would say to yourself, can we at least agree on this? Can you at least see what this administration is doing? And one, admit your guy screwed up royally on this. And two, the guy in charge right now is doing a hell of a job and doing the job that the American people voted him to do. Now, why is that? Well, because oftentimes those who are most sympathetic to some of these awful individuals who have permeated the country are those who do not get impacted by their crime. They're not living in their backyards. They're not having their children subject to the drug deals. They're not having their kids and their neighbors subject to the gangs. They are living in their own little bubbles. They're living in oftentimes highly affluent, oftentimes white, suburban settings where this is all just a feel-good yard sign to them. No human is illegal. Yes, they are. Hate to break it to you, but guess what? They are. And when they're terrorizing communities, they're not terrorizing your community with the dopey yard sign. Why is it that you don't see those super woke yard signs on the east side of Kansas City? Why is it you don't see those super woke yard signs in this house, we believe, in the Bronx, New York? Why do you think that is? Well, first off, they don't have the, shall we say, privilege to put up those ridiculous yard signs And two, overwhelmingly, even if they're still voting for the party that embraces all this craziness, they don't believe it. One of the biggest stories coming out of November is the realignment of the political parties and the way the working class to the lower middle class voter of all backgrounds, not just white working class, which is what 2016 was about, but the working class across the socioeconomic and racial scales shifted to the right. In some parts of the country, in a big way. While the Democrats continue to get that stronghold on the upper middle class to upper class, suburban, oftentimes white voter. The college educated. Forget the PhDs. I mean, they're total nut jobs at this point. But, you talk about the college graduate. That's who they're targeting. That's their base. Now, that will work out well for them. Here's the thing. Historically, the Democrat Party oftentimes had a better chance in a presidential year because their voting base was more likely to be a voter that wasn't engaged in every single election. They weren't going out for the school boards. They weren't going out even for the midterms, but they would show up as the working class for presidential elections and vote for Bill Clinton and vote for Barack Obama. As the parties continue to shift, it actually could end up being a case where the Republican Party performs better in presidential years and doesn't perform as well in midterms and other elections, as they develop a working class voter bloc that is less likely to show up to every single election. Suburban voters have always been more likely to do that. So that's something that strategically the party is going to have to look at. But this is something right here this morning. You arrest a top MS-13 gang member in the Washington, D.C. area. You go and you talk about this everywhere you can. You use surrogates all over the country. You go in, if you're smart, and you want to take advantage of this politically and also brag about it because it's the right thing, knowing full well, like, you're not going to get a lot of national media coverage on this, at least not from some of your legacy media outlets. You go and you do a grassroots campaign push on this and a media blitz on this in key urban centers, and you say, these are the bad people we are coming for, and they're in your backyard. They're not in Leawood. They're not in Prairie Village. And I'm not saying they're necessarily in Kansas City, but you get my point. They're more likely to be in certain communities in Kansas City trying to take advantage of, misled youth, trying to take advantage of kids who are vulnerable right now, young people who are looking for some kind of future who feel like they have none. That's who they're looking for. That's who they're targeting. Emmanuel Cleaver's not going to do it. We all know that. He's too busy doing bizarre press conferences, screaming about, musty moo-moos and the whole thing. I'm out here at the K, or I would use my drop right there at that moment.
You Mr. Moo-moo-moo.
Mark's on it. I knew he would be. He's on his game back there running the board at the KCMO Talk Radio studios. But that's what he's doing. You're never going to hear this from Cleaver. Not in a million years. You're going to hear about how we should all be super offended that the post office might suffer some cuts. Are you kidding me? Who in their right mind is sitting there saying to themselves today when they wake up, I am distraught over the post office potentially having some cuts? If you have that level of privilege, please check it at the door. That is a sign of somebody who literally does not have any real-world problems if you are distraught over a possible 10% budget cut at the post office, which blows at its job anyway. I'm still waiting on my parents' birthday card for my 1-year-old. Her birthday was 24 days ago. It was sent a month ago. No one knows where it is. So spare me the whole, we can't live without the post office. What are we going to do without the post office? You telling me the post office can't get a little more efficient in how it goes about its business? You know it and I know it. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We are always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Royals owner John Sherman is going to be here coming up at 9:05 on 95.7 FM. And also streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. So do not miss that conversation. We've obviously got a lot to talk to him about as we are live at Kauffman Stadium on opening day 2025 on KCMO. Well, we're rolling on from the K at KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Owner John Sherman is 15 minutes away from being right here on the show. So make sure you're streaming that on the app, and we are glad you're here as well. So I'm going to the bathroom here in the Diamond Club at the K where they got us set up for the broadcast, and I'm hearing some of the TV folks talk about their plans for the day. And one of them says, yeah, I'm not going to the game. I got a little Orange Theory after this. I'm like, okay. Are we revoking man cards for male anchors talking about going to Orange Theory? I was like, geez, you got to be kidding. These TV guys, gosh, they got to get a little gruff like us radio folks, I'm all about having a good time and staying in shape, but, geez, I'm not bragging about Orange Theory. I'm telling you that right now. Unbelievable. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on what has been mostly a show without callers because we've had so many guests this morning. But we do have time for you. Let's go to Wes in Gladstone on KCMO. Wes, what's up, buddy?
Yeah, Pete, did I hear you right? They're making you do your show from the men's room?
Well done there, Wes. Hey. Well done, buddy. Nope. Just got to have a quick pit stop there with all the coffee I'm drinking this morning. No, we have a very nice setup here in the Diamond Club overlooking home plate. So they've taken care of us. It's a nice setup. And, hey, I've said it throughout the morning, but it's a great place to come and watch a baseball game. I understand business-wise why they think they got to go. But every time I'm here, I'm like, there's nothing wrong here from a fan perspective. I'll leave it at that.
Oh, right. Well, Pete, you never cease to amaze me. Your explanation of the voting trends and how they get certain groups out for off-election and for presidential elections, you kind of stole my thunder, and what I wanted to call about was, is there any chance that if the Republican Party in Johnson County got the right candidate, they could hammer Sharice Davids enough that they could actually get that seat, or is that never going to happen?
How do you define the right candidate?
Well, I think, has someone ever gone after her and hammered her? Because remember, when she first got elected, she wanted to abolish ICE. And now what you were talking about is her not coming out and endorsing them arresting and deporting all these gang members. Seems to me, is she vulnerable on that? It sounds like she's probably not.
See, I don't think she is. She just won by 12 points last time around. Yeah. How much has to happen from the standpoint of attrition of her voting base to suddenly go to a spot where she's losing an election? I mean, you're winning elections by double digits. That's crazy, absolutely crazy, to be sitting there and saying. And here's the thing: it's what we just talked about. The demographics on her district are actually trending in her favor based on where each party is heading right now.
Yeah. Well, hey, I will let you go, but from now on, I'm going to call in as Musky Moo Moo.
That's fine. I need a little more.
Okay.
It's Musty with a T. Musty Moo Moo.
You Musty Moo Moo. Musty Moo Moo is signing off, guys. You enjoy the game.
All right. I am not hanging out for it, but not because I'm going to an Orange Theory class. I've got to actually run up to the airport because my stroller was left up there, or it got stuck in Orlando yesterday, so I got to go pick up a stroller. So I'm trying to figure out, do I take them up on a few $100 in airline credit, or do I just have them deliver it to the house? That's the debate I'm having with myself right now. And then the other part of it is I got to go do Kansas City PBS after this for their weekend review show with our buddy Nick Haynes. So I got to, put some liberals in line on that show here at some point today. So we'll do that as well. Hey, let's bring in our buddy Nathan Brennan, KCTV5. Take a seat, my man. You're in the leadoff spot before John Sherman comes on. How are you? What's going on?
I'm doing all right, man. It's weird. I don't have a headset on right now, so I can't really hear what's going on, but I hope that everyone can hear me.
And you're sounding great.
It's a pleasure to be here, man. It's awesome to be on the airwaves with you as usual. Now actually face-to-face in person.
I know.
I think this might be the first time we've actually ever met in person.
I thought we might have met at an opening day, but how long have you been here now?
Been 2.5 years.
I feel like maybe we haven't.
I don't know, but this is now my third opening day. So,
well, normally normally we're
Pleasure to
talking to
be
you, and it's like, we got you in the car. You're, about to kill yourself on the highway driving through 6 inches of
talking
snow.
about snow that's on the ground. So not this time. We're
You
having a
earned
good
your
time.
stripes this winter, brother.
Dude, I feel like everyone's earned their stripes in Kansas City, especially, too, when you talk about opening day. If you would have asked me a month ago how it was going to shape up for opening day, I would have been said, I have absolutely no idea. So our meteorologists over at Channel 5 have been very nice to us.
We did have that little blizzard come through a couple weeks ago on that Wednesday night, as I recall. But outside of that, you guys are out here. What do you have going on this morning?
We got all kinds of things going on, man. We talked to executives with the Royals. We're going to talk to some fans here in the next hour or so, or actually right now, because 9 o'clock,
gates are opening up.
Gates just opened. So we're going to hop down, talk to some of those fans, talk to Kurt Nelson with the Hall of Fame with the Royals, too. So I always say this is one of the best days of the year. Pete, I don't know if you have any say with maybe Congress or local officials, but we need to somehow make this a holiday. I don't know if we should make it like a local holiday. I think it should be a federal holiday, opening day. I don't know if you have any poll. I don't know if you can talk to anyone about that, but I've always said if we talk about the greatness of national holidays, opening day is at the very top of that list.
Let me ask you, you want to swap out Labor Day?
I don't know if I can say that. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
Juneteenth?
I don't know, man. That's the problem is I think it would have to be an addition.
See, we can't keep adding federal holidays. Come on.
People deserve to have a day off for opening day.
We got a day a month
deserve to
now.
have a day off. People in Kansas City, they need to come out to the K, take the day off. It's a beautiful day outside. I think that everyone has earned it.
All right, let me ask you this then. Would you rather have opening day as a federal holiday or let's say the Thursday or Friday of March Madness, first weekend?
Man, that's a tough question.
I'm taking March Madness. Listen, you can get out and go to the K, scoot out half a day, get out early. I'm taking March Madness.
See, that's the benefit of working on the morning show is that
I
have the luxury of, okay, my shift is done. I can go home and just rot on the couch and watch basketball all day. I know not everyone has that luxury. I still got to go opening day, man.
Wow.
I got to go opening
diehard
day.
baseball.
But the problem is, too, is why can't we just have them both?
Well,
we gotta give people
you gotta go work for the government if you want all this time off. All right, you're in the wrong line of work, brother.
I'm definitely the wrong line of work.
You are a hustler. I appreciate you, and it's great to see you.
It's great to see you too, and make sure. I believe it's next Saturday is our first game over the air on KCTV5. It's next Saturday or Sunday, so we will have Sunday, correct. So we will have 9 locally televised games on KCTV5. It's awesome. I've always said local baseball belongs on local TV channels, so we're proud that we get at least a few games.
Great job. Nathan Brennan, KCTV5. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you too, brother.